welcome to my channel once again. And if today is your first time, consider subscribing, and also don't forget to share the channel. Alright, so if you are interested in data analytics and programming, then this channel is the right channel for you. Without wasting my time, let's go straight into the classroom. Welcome to the classroom, and in this tutorial we're gonna talk about SQL for data analytics. And this tutorial is going to be a series of tutorials that will talk about basic SQL to advanced SQL scripts or syntax that we can use to manipulate our data or records. Okay, so quickly I will define what SQL is. So SQL means structured query language, and it's a programming language designed for managing and manipulating relational databases. And relational databases are databases that contains records that are related. And there will be a separate full video on what relational databases are, so we will not talk much about it. And in this training, or in this tutorial, we're going to use Microsoft SQL Server for this training. And Microsoft SQL Server is a relational database management system that is used to create databases, store records in databases, manipulate, and also perform manipulation on them. There are a lot of different relational database systems. We have MySQL, Postgres, Oracle, IBM, DB2, database management system, etc. So there are a lot of them, but then in this tutorial we're going to use Microsoft SQL Server. Right, so let me talk briefly about Microsoft SQL Server. So on the left hand side you will see our instance of the connection. Then under the instance you see databases. We will not talk much about the other options, so we will just focus on the databases. So when you create a database, it comes under this databases folder. So currently we don't have any database. When you install MS Server Management Studio, it comes with this predefined databases, but then we will create our own database for this training purpose. And on the ribbon tool, the most important tool that we will talk about is the new query. This new query will give you an interface for you to enter your queries or your scripts. So I will just click on it to open. Right, so this is the interface where you can create your scripts, and below it we have the status bar, which tells us that our instance is connected, and this is the name of our instance. So it mostly takes the name of your computer and the SQL Express version. So this is the interface where we will be typing our scripts. But before that, I will leave a link, or after this training I will leave a link below so that you can download Microsoft SQL Server to also learn along as we talk about SQL for data analytics. So you can just visit Microsoft's official website, and you can just type Microsoft SQL in Google, and you see a link that will bring you here. And Microsoft SQL Server has two versions. It has the paid version and the free version, which you can use for training or for mini projects. So just scroll down to where you can find the free version. And in the free version, we have two types. We have the developer and the express. But for the purpose of this training, we will use the express version. I've already downloaded it. So you just click on download to download it. And you scroll down to where it's written SQL Server tools and connectors. So after you've downloaded the express version, you need to also download SQL Server Management Studio, SSMS. So you just click on this link to also send you to a page where you can download the SSMS tool. Right, so you scroll down to here, free download for SQL Server Management Studio. So when you click on this link, it will download it for you. I've already downloaded it, so I will not download it again. And when you are done, you double click on the express setup file that was downloaded to install Microsoft SQL Server. And when you are done, you click on the SSMS setup, which was also downloaded, to also install it. So you go through the normal, you follow the steps in installing it as you run it. I've done that, so I will not talk about it again. I'll leave these links in the description below. So let's go back to our server management or SQL Server Management Studio. Right, so the first thing that we will do is to create a database. And to create a database, you can type the create database syntax. Right, so this is the create database syntax, followed by the name of the database. So in this tutorial, our database name will be let's say SQL. Let me make it SQL Data Analytics. No, let me just give it a simple name. So Data Analytics DB. Right. So when you are done typing the name of the database, followed by a semicolon. So semicolon will terminate this line of code. So if you have other codes below it, it will not run both together. It will run them one after the other. Right, so it's kind of a full stop. Let me say it that way. So when you are done typing your script, you just come to execute the script. All right, so let me just click on execute. And when you click on execute, you see the message window, which tells you whether your script was successful or it failed. But in this case, the commands completed successfully, so it means we had a success. But then the database has still not appeared under the databases folder. And to make it appear, you just refresh the database by clicking on this icon or pressing on F5 if you are using Windows. Okay, so now after we refresh, the name of our database appears here. So database is simply where we can create our tables to store our records. Right, so database is also a collection of related records, which we will not talk about now, since this class is more focused on analytics with SQL. So there will be a full video on it, as I already said. Right. So now we have our database created. The next thing that we need to do is to create our tables. So tables are going to hold the records. Tables has fields in which we can save our records into. So to make this database active, I will double click on it. Right. Come back to the scripting area. Then comment on the first code, or maybe delete it, but then I'll comment on it. In programming, when we say comment, it means you are making the script or the code inactive and it cannot be run. So there are different ways of commenting codes or scripts in programming. So in SQL, this is how we comment a code or a script. So once this is commented, when I click on execute, it will not run. Right. So basically that's what comments does. So comments are useful to put down instructions or notes in a collaborative environment. When you are working with a team, comments are very helpful, or it will even help you to also put down notes on codes or scripts that you write. Okay, so back to our training. So to create a table, all that you need to do is to type the create table syntax followed by the name of the table. So our first table will be students table. Okay. Then you bring your brackets. Let me put my semicolon here. Then inside the brackets, you have the field name and the data type. So our first field name will be student ID. So this field will contain the ID of the students. You bring a comma. Then the next thing will be the first name of the students. And the data type will be varchar. We'll talk about data types into details as we proceed in this tutorial. Then L name, which means last name. So last name is also a variable character. So variable character is a combination. This should be comma, not semicolon. Right. So variable character is a mixture of variable characters, which can include text, numbers, and symbols. Right. And the next record that we will take on students is the age. So age is a number. So it's going to take an integer or an int data type. Then what again? What records again can we take? Okay. Right. So the next record that we want to take is gender. So gender will also be a variable character. So the data type will be a variable character. Okay. So data types tell the fields in a table the kind of data that you are saving in your database, and it's very important, yes, when you are designing a database. Okay, so as I've already defined variable character and integer, int simply means integers or numbers, right? Then varchar is simply variable characters. Okay, so it can take numbers, text, or symbols. Then into brackets 50. What we mean by this is that the first name should take only 50 characters. The last name should also take only 50 characters. By default, varchar takes 255 characters, but then nobody's name is as long as 55 characters. So at most we are using 50. So if you type characters more than 50, the system will automatically truncate it to 50 characters, right? Then gender to, okay, let's make it 20. Gender is either male or female or other. Okay, so now that we've created our students table, we need to run it or execute it. So I'll click on execute to execute the script. Okay, so we had success. Now let's check if our table has appeared under tables. So I'll click on the plus icon. We don't have it here yet. So what I'll do is I'll refresh the database again and open tables. It's not here. Let me select our database. So I'll come here, master, then select or make our database active. Let me run the script again and let's see what it tells us. Okay, so now we have our table here, right? What happened in the first instance was that I didn't select, or I didn't tell Microsoft SQL Server the database that we want to save this table into. Master had been selected, so I think it will create in, let me see, it will create in, okay, we don't have it here. Okay, it will create in master, right? So you have to, let me just delete this, you don't need it here. So always when you are creating your tables, you have to ensure that the right database is selected. Ideally, I should have added the database name to the students table, but then to prevent that, just come here and select the database that you want to work in. So this will save you a whole lot of problems, right? And it's good that we encountered this error so that at least it will help us to learn. So basically, this is how we create a database and a table. Let's create another table. So I'll just do copy and paste. Then I'll comment on the first table because it's already run, so we don't want to run it again. If you don't comment and you click on execute, the codes will be run from top to bottom, so it will run again. Right, so the next table that we want to create is students grades. So student grades, right? Then the ID, grades ID. So ID mostly identify roles. It's uniquely identify roles, and the grade will be an int. So in this table, we only have grades ID and grade, right? So this is all that we want in this table. So let me execute it. Okay, so now we've created two tables in our database. Let me refresh. Okay, so we've created two tables in our database. Right. The next thing that we will do is to insert records in our tables. In this tutorial, we're going to create the records ourselves. We can import records from an external database, but then we want to create it from scratch. Right, so the next thing that we will do is to create or to insert records in our database. And to do that, I'll open a new query tab because I'll save these queries and send or put it in the description so that you can use to practice along. So let me just open a new query and insert records into the table. And to do that, you only need to write the insert record syntax. So basically, SQL is just like English. So insert into. Right, then you call the table name. So first of all, we will insert into the students table. So you see that an option will pop up with the table names. So you can just select it. Okay. Then insert takes two parameters. That is the table field names and their values. So I'll just create the field names. We have, let me check. Okay. The field names for students, you can check from here. We have student ID, F name. Okay, so stud, and mind you, the name should be the same. If you make a mistake, your records will not be inserted. Age, gender. All right, so you close the brackets, and the next parameter is the values. Right, so after you've created your field names, you need to also insert the values. So the first one is the ID. Let's make it 101, comma, then F name. Let me make it Kwaku. But since this is a script, it has to be wrapped inside quotes. So it can be single or double quotes. But then integers are not wrapped in quotes. When you wrap an integer in a quote, it means, or it becomes a string. So string is also a data type. As I said, we will talk more about these in a database related video. So let's leave it at string and integer. Int is an integer, then string is text. Right. So last name too will be wrapped between single or double quotes. So I'll use single quote for now. Then the next value is the age. So age is also an integer, so you don't need to wrap it in any quotes. Then gender, we have to wrap it in quotes. Right. So we can insert records one after the other, or we can insert multiple records. So now I'm done. If I run this query, or if I run this script, it will create this first record for us. But then I want to create more records, so I will use the multiple ways of creating or adding values to our records. So you need to separate it with commas like this. Then this will be 102 followed by Atajwa, comma, Atamansa. Okay. Comma once again. Let me just do copy and paste so that we can move faster. The script. So I'll just run the script. Right, so 10 rows affected. That means 10 rows has been inserted into the table students. Very easy. So this is how you insert records, or we insert records into our tables. Let's also insert records into the student grades table, and I'll just edit this, or I'll do copy and paste. Let me copy this, comment this so that it doesn't run again. Okay, I'll paste it, but the students grade table only takes 2 records. That is the grade ID, grades ID, and the grade. Right, so it only takes 2 records. Let me just delete the rest. Okay, so here to let me delete the rest. Okay, so now we also have values for our values for the student grades table. So I'll just execute the code to also insert records in our student grades table. So we had a success. So this brings us to the end of the first tutorial. And in the next tutorial, we're going to talk about how to select records or retrieve records from our database. So see you in the next lecture.